we're here today to look at new price movement and some price analysis on VeChain, that is VET USD. We're going to take a look at the moves it has made recently and try to decipher where it may go next after this fantastic run up. Of course, before we look at all of this, this is a reminder this is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence with your own trading. All right, so we left VET here. We had a trend line on the weekly chart, taking into account these wicks, driving down to this current price. Now, this is the current week. And during this week, it did break below. Here's the trend line here, that weekly trend line. Excuse me, it broke above that weekly trend line and took out that price. It has since stayed around that trend line. If I back out of the day on the daily chart and look, you can still see this trend line coming down, and it's really sat at that trend line, rotating below and above for the last 4 or 5 days. Now, that just means this range bound around that trend line gives that trend line more significance and more power, because it means that the market is happy where price is currently, and it's going to take another major move in the market to either go up or down to get away from that trend line. So as much as VET has run up in the past 2 or 3 weeks, the market is not pushing it down, which is a good sign for longs, right? Because a lot of times after you see a big move up, you expect a immediate and almost semi-violent retracement back down. If that doesn't happen, that's a good sign for longs. So we're in a good position here with VET. Going back out on the daily again, you can see the trend line. I want to be very clear about where that trend line is, okay? Now, we have also drawn another trend line on the daily. This is a supporting trend line. Looking at, this kind of takes into consideration the fantastic run up it's had since, goodness, what's that, the 4th of December? You can see that, let me back up. On the last video I said is we were going to watch that trend line and see if price actually fell below this trend line, which would indicate the market might start to fall. Well, it did go below just briefly, but it has since gone back up into above this line, okay? So this line is still valid, still holding that line well, and it's pushing against this trend line on the big weekly chart we've seen. So all that to say is, I think if you look at this, if I were to draw a quick line here, you would see we're back into this wedge position. Look at that. So we're into this wedge triangular position, which indicates to me as the price constricts and compresses, there could be a big move in VET coming up pretty soon, actually in the next day or two. So we'll definitely want to keep an eye on that. Still though, I'm not looking to suspecting that this will fall, but I'm just watching the market, that if it does fall below this trend line, I'm going to expect it to start falling down. Now, how far down would it fall? Well, let me take a look. I'm going to draw a Fibonacci retracement here from this swing low to this swing high. I always say when you see a fantastic run up like that, the Fibonacci .618, these are just patterns you see in trading all the time. I'm not going to be too concerned at all with price if it falls down to the 618 line, which would be about 0.2688. I'm not going to be concerned with that at all. So if the price does fall below this trend line, I could expect it to hit this 0.26, whatever this is, this line right here. And then it could very well continue on back up to these highs that it has been making. Okay, so if the market goes below this trend line, look for it to hit here, then the market will have to make another decision. Here, the market would have to make another decision. Would it fall down even further, or would it start working its way back up? Okay, that's what we're going to look at for the downside. Now, if the market goes above this little range right here and pops out of this line, obviously, this is the next line it's going to hit. I forget where that came from. If I zoom, oh, well, that's just the high of the swing back in February earlier this year. Okay, so that's the high of that. I'm going to erase that and make that red because I like them being red better than blue. Let me make that a red so I'll remember that. Good. And so if it goes above and breaks out of this wedge to the upside, you'll expect it to hit that top of the swing earlier this year And then I'll back out a little bit further and see what else I might see on the weekly. Let's see. Okay, I see some. First of all, there's all kinds of wicks. There's a wick here, a wick here, a wick here, a wick here, a wick here. So all that says is that somewhere in this range, I'm going to put a line somewhere around there. Excuse me. What have I done? Let's get out of this. I'm going to put a line somewhere around here, this top of this wick, top of that wick, and the top of that wick. And then probably just somewhere around here. This is an art, not a science here. We're just saying you could actually I don't know why I keep doing that. You could actually almost say this entire range right here would be a target for vet to go to, and it might even have some difficulty getting through it because you can just see the number of wicks over the past year and a half that has fallen in this window right here. So you're going to want to be careful. Is vet going to jump up in a day or two and break all of those highs from 2 years ago, a year or two, over the past year and two, where all those wicks were? It could. It could. The crypto market is a market in itself, but it may not as well. So if price does start working its way up above 0.33, it looks like between 0.33 and 0.40, there's going to be some definite resistance it's going to have to work through. So you obviously want to be careful with that. Does not mean that in the long term or even the medium term, it won't break that. It would not surprise me at all for VET to go that high. I'm just saying it may not go one candle, two candles straight up. You may find that price goes up in here and has to figure out how long it's going to stay up there first. So be careful. As always, do your own due diligence. Watch this trend line here. If price falls below it, it could fall on down to, good grief, it could fall on down to probably around this range, somewhere around here, 0.26. So do your own diligence. Keep an eye on the price, and I'll be sure to keep you updated.